And so for today's meeting, Wednesday, August the 23rd, Citizens Oversight Committee meeting. Madam Chair, I did want to inform the committee that member Rebecca Suggs is attending from a remote meeting location pursuant to the Brown Act as amended by AB 2449. Specifically, health issues are preventing member Suggs from being in the room today, which qualify as just cause for remote participation under the Act.
Thank you. And now, Martina, will you call roll, please?
Certainly. Kingston Cole. Larry Minikis.
Roll.
Here. Present.
Jenny Biggs. That is Larry Chu.
Here.
John McCauley.
Present.
Lucy Dilworth.
Present.
Rebecca Suggs.
Remote.
Pat Randolph.
Here.
And Chair Howard.
Here. Thank you.
Just to let the committee know, since member Suggs is attending virtually, we will need to have a roll call vote for any actionable items this afternoon.
Did everybody hear that? I have a little hard time hearing still.
Yeah, it's a little.
Okay. Okay, first up is agenda adjustments. I have a few things I'd like to reorder. And I think that 7A, B, and C should be removed from action items and placed in discussion. Do you have any comment on that?
I'm trying to pull up my agenda, so I'll just need
Oh,
to see
okay.
what those are referencing.
Okay.
Sorry. Well, it depends on whether you plan to actually adopt them. So if they're just for discussion, it just allows you to have a discussion about them, but not actually make a final action. So they're under action items with the idea that at the end of this discussion, there'll be a motion
Potentially
to
adopt them.
And
Okay, so we can leave them.
Okay.
But in fact, I do remember that something came up and you said that under, what is the name of our rules of procedure?
Brown
Act. No,
Oh,
there's a
Rosenberg?
Rosenberg.
Mhm.
That in fact, something did not have to be designated an action item. It could be a discussion item and action could be taken.
Yes,
And I assume vice versa too.
It's more, yes, but I think it's more if we can sort of, it helps in planning what
Sure.
when we're planning out the agenda, but if there's something on discussion and the recommendation is adopt final, whatever, or, you know, if it gets to a point where you do want to adopt something, it doesn't prevent you from doing it. But I think what we try to do is keep things that will be sort of aiming to act on under action items and things that are just up for a general discussion that we know no final action will be taken, that generally will fall under discussion. But you're right, it doesn't, the Rosenberg's rules don't specify that, you know, if it's under discussion, you may not vote on it.
Does it change the Brown Act going out for public comment? Do you go out for public comment on action items
Yes,
as well?
yes,
as
on everything on the agenda, yeah.
Thank you.
The only thing
You can
that,
nudge me if I forget.
the only thing that sometimes we don't go out for public comment on is information items, which are just sort of something that's in the record for everyone's reference rather than any action you take.
But you can optionally go out if someone wants to.
Yes,
speak.
exactly.
The only
I do have a question on 7D. The wording on the recommendation was odd for me. Discuss recruitment and selection of, are we not nominating and voting?
We are nominating and voting.
Okay, so that was just odd.
Yeah.
We'll leave it as odd.
We'll just leave it as odd, yes. Okay, the other thing I noticed was that I think that the committee report T's was reversed.
Yes, they were definitely reversed.
Yeah,
I need
okay.
to call
Very
Lucy
good.
and say.
Does anybody have any other adjustments they'd like to suggest?
I'll just mention that it looks like a whole pile of stuff
Yes.
in an agenda. And as I understand it, Megan, you might want to correct or comment. As I understand it, if we get to a point on the agenda where we know we can't squeeze everything in, at whatever point we are, we can just say, okay, let's table the rest until next time.
Yes, absolutely.
We don't have to make all the adjustments now.
No, no, I've definitely
Okay.
not.
Great.
Yes, okay. So it's now open time for public expression. Martina, are there any members of the public present?
Not, but I can just say it this once, and then if you want, I can let you know throughout the meeting whether anyone joins, if that works for everyone.
It does, thank you.
So if there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the consent calendar item, I'm sorry, the open time for public expression item of the agenda, please raise your hand in the reactions. And for those joining us by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute yourself. And Madam Chair, we do not have any non-membered participants to the meeting at this time.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're at the executive officer's report, but Mark isn't here, so we're just going to move along to the consent calendar. And we don't have any members of the public here, so is there any, yes, Larry,
I'd like to split 6A and 6B into 2 motions.
to 2 motions, okay.
And I sent Martina a slight correction to the June 28th minutes. It made it sound like we were not here, that no one was in the room.
I see, okay. Can we
Are we
read
moving
the
to-
correction and we, I'm sorry,
I have a concern about the minutes.
oh, okay.
And go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I went through the minutes and looked at the next sections, and there's somehow we had this discussion about transparency,
Yes,
and it's not mentioned whatsoever in the minutes. And it's a big item, at least substantively to me. All right, in the discussion items that follow, and Megan, I mean, you bring it up in the discussions, and I'm just saying, discussions occurred, but they are not adequately reflected in the minutes. So
Which minutes are
So
we
you want to recall the minutes to next meeting? Yeah, either that or I'm just filing an objection.
Well, so I know that Pat was talking about the June 28th minutes. Kingston, are you talking about the June minutes also?
Yeah, I'm talking about the minutes that we did.
No, that would be
July
July.
14th.
You're talking July 14th,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, the last ones, the one that's referenced in here.
Well, there are 2 of them referenced in there.
All right, well, the one I'm talking about is the one where we had,
The retreat.
yeah, the retreat,
Okay.
yeah.
The retreat.
So then just for the purpose of this meeting, I just want to read into the record that Rebecca's edit, or sorry, Pat's edit for the 28th was she suggested it, instead of it reading at no point were attendees present for the meeting, she suggested we say at no point were outside attendees or non-member attendees present for the meeting to indicate that while the committee was there, there was no public. Correct? And then for the July 14 meetings that I believe was the COC retreat, Kingston is saying there is a conversation that was had regarding transparency that don't seem to have made verbatim for the minutes. I know those minutes were a bit more high level, but is that what you were saying, Kingston?
I'm saying they were omitted, and it's simply not enough to say that it's high level, and therefore the omission is acceptable to me.
Okay,
It's a
perfect.
big issue.
I want to make sure
And
that that's record for as of the edits.
And
I
I
have
said,
Sorry, I have a small correction. It's called to order. It says Cherry Howard rather than Chair Howard. Just very small correction.
Okay, and is that in June 28th?
No, that's July 14th.
July 14th.
It's the
Okay,
very first sentence.
okay. Perfect. And then Rebecca, did you have a comment?
Yeah.
also?
I sent in a number of edits. I don't know if you want to, I don't know how you want to handle that. I'm glad to go through them. Or Mark had suggested that he go along with all of them as changes. I'm assuming the
But I
full
think
COC would want to know what they are, so.
Yeah, and I think Mark did make a pretty pronounced exception to the one addition
Yeah.
that he thought should not be added, so we should be clear on that as well.
And I commented back to him, I agreed with him, so.
Um,
I would suggest that we just shelve the minutes and we approve them next month, and then everything that we're discussing here, we add and then go back to it rather than discuss it now.
Yes, and a number of the edits apply to what we should have what we did accomplish or thought we were going to accomplish
Right.
in the retreat that might reflect upon work we're going to do today. Not sure, but gonna guess.
I'm a little bit stumped about how to go forward.
Generally, when any committee I've been on where we run into an issue with the minutes, we just put them to the side. We come back next month, we make the changes. Any of us can.
How and when do changes get made? Because if we don't want to, they don't, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, people would send in their suggested edits as Rebecca did. Staff would review and then also would have the record of Mark's notes and my notes. So if there's something that's questionable on there, which is what happened with one of all of Rebecca's edits were great. And then Mark said, oh, but this one would lead to an inaccurate record. So and then she agreed. So there can be back and forth like that with staff. And then a new version of the minutes would come forward based on whatever input you have all provided by then and what staff has
So
reviewed.
then what we're agreed is that if you have any input or any changes, that all happens between now and the next meeting, and it goes to staff, gets reviewed, and then resubmitted. Okay.
Although it does sound like maybe the June minutes are good to go. I'm hearing more edits about the July, so you might just want to cross those off your list today. But that was fairly minor.
And she just read it,
Yeah.
and it was very minor.
Do we need a motion of some
Yes, for
sort
the
of?
June minutes.
Larry wants to speak.
Yeah, I was gonna say what Megan did, but on top of that, just remind to this committee that these are not like detailed conversations.
Right.
These are just summary minutes. So, we're just trying to capture the essence of what was discussed as opposed to verbatim, as I heard someone say.
Yeah, particularly if we have a video.
And we have a video except for the July.
No,
Yes.
For July, there's not video, you're right, yeah.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest that, what Novella did at one point when they were going back and forth a lot on minutes in the past, they moved to what they called action minutes, which were by their nature very, very brief, just like topics. So for instance,
Right.
definitely we talked about transparency, but you would just say transparency was discussed, and that would be it. So you just have the headlines.
If it said that, it would have been fine.
No, I agree with you, it should be in there, but as an example.
It was just,
Yeah.
it's a big issue.
No, I agree. But
Yeah,
my point is that you could consider moving to action minutes, which are substantially less just named topics. And then you'd have the record, like your comment about the wordsmithing, it just makes a lot of that go away, just the thought. It also saved staff having to spend tremendous amount of time doing minutes. That's why I know that I made the change, because the minutes were always very late because it took so much effort to create them. Just a thought.
Mine wasn't just wordsmithing, it made it sound like none of us were here.
Yeah, I know, but honestly, that is literally just a wordsmith.
Yes.
Is that a change you want to put in the bylaws?
Oh, that's a good idea, actually. Yeah, that's an
It shouldn't
interesting
need to
thought.
be a bylaws thing.
But anyway, just a point for consideration at some point.
Somewhere, let's place.
Well, I think
it
the only
somewhere.
time we really need to be concerned again is if we are not taking video for some reason.
Right.
No,
If we literally-
Jennifer, I missed what you said.
I think that our concern for the future is if there's ever a time again when we're not taking video.
So
That would
my
be good.
comment,
Yeah, that's-
so my comment is, we were not videoing on July 14th, right?
Right.
On the retreat. So even though those were meant to be high level, my concern is that this is the only record of what transpired. If we made big decisions, if we came to big conclusions, they need to be accurately reflected, I think, in the minutes, or we won't have a record.
Usually.
Does that sound right?
Actions are reflected, but I'll give you a baseline for, the discussion we're having. This is a consent item. So if we don't scratch it off the list in literally 30 seconds, we're spending too much time on it. Which
Yeah.
means
Right.
all this stuff as
Right, right,
suggested
right.
should go to staff
Exactly.
before.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Right.
Okay. So, do I hear a motion to accept the minutes from the June meeting?
motion to accept the
With
June
one exception.
minutes.
With the edits as.
One edit.
With Pat's edit, yeah, all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
We don't have to do.
We have to do roll.
Yeah.
So is that a motion by member Minikis to accept the June 28th minutes with the edits per Pat Randolph and to table the July 14th minutes until the next meeting?
Correct.
You need a second, right?
Yes.
Has it good? Okay.
Who was that?
I think it was.
It's John, it was his turn.
Okay, I second.
Okay, so that's a motion by member Minikis, seconded by member McCauley to approve 6B per Pat Randolph edit and then table 6A to the next meeting with starting roll call vote with Kingston Cole,
Aye.
Larry Minikis,
Aye.
Kenny Biggs is absent for this meeting, Larry Chu,
Abstain.
John McCauley,
Aye.
Pat Randolph,
Aye.
Lucy Dilworth,
Aye.
Rebecca Suggs,
Aye.
and Chair Howard.
Aye.
So that is, what is that? That is 7 ayes, 1 abstention, and 1, no, I'm sorry, 6 ayes, 1 abstention, and 1 absence for that vote.
Okay, let's move along. We have a group of 4 different items under action items, the first being the Citizens Oversight Committee onboarding process. Rebecca, would you like to introduce us to your document?
I will. So Pat and Jenny and I worked on making a new onboarding process for new people coming into the COC. Our primary driver was to make it a process rather than a document with a bunch of check marks on it. We've gotten feedback. I know I heard from Jennifer about the process when she and I worked on it, that good Lord, this is, 42 million documents and none of them apply to the COC. So we went through what we believe the process to be, what we thought needed to be included, and we put together the 2-page document that you guys all got a copy of. So it's gone through a couple of us who are longtime members, and then it got a final set of eyeballs, Jenny looking at it saying, I'm brand new, and yep, this looks right to me as well. You've got a process, you've got a list of documents, and what I'd suggest is, first of all, Pat, before I totally leave it as I'm not going to do a complete review of everything that's there, Pat, is there anything you want to say about it?
I didn't even bring it with me.
We anticipated there wouldn't be a lot to object to. However, I'll first open it. Are there any questions, comments, concerns about what we put together? Yeah, Larry.
I have a comment for consistency. I would change Buddy to co-member. Buddy, bringing someone in and then having a buddy here kind of denotes something different than what we are. And so that would be the change, because we're always calling ourselves members. And if we're working with another newer member here, I would suggest we change Buddy to co-member, simply.
Okay, I'm not sure how I feel about that, so I'll reserve comment. Others?
What's wrong with mentor and mentee? We could do that as well. And I like Buddy, sort of fun to me, but if I had to go with another euphemism, I'd go mentor and mentee.
Anybody else? Yeah.
I like either one of those. Mentor mentee is fine with me, but I agree, I wouldn't use Buddy.
Okay.
Also, if I were new and you handed me this document, I wouldn't take very kindly to being given assignments.
Yeah, that touched me too a little bit.
feels a little not like the right tone. We're all colleagues here, and I think that by the time we get here, we ought to be, not treated as if we're going to school to participate here.
What if someone doesn't do their homework?
What?
What if someone doesn't do their homework?
What the dog eats.
You stay after class.
Yeah, I'm
Is it just the word or?
Would you get
Is
the
it
word
the
recommend in
concept?
there? I mean,
Recommendations are great, and reasons for the recommendations. So, I would like a cheat sheet, like
Even
this, I
strongly.
recommend you read this, and this is why, and this is how our meetings work, and this is who is on the ATC and why, and this is who is on, what are, and what are the responsibilities of the Citizens Oversight Committee members? I think that was very opaque at first. And I did a bunch of the reading that was recommended.
May I add to that, that you're making a good point. I think we could add why we want you to at least consider going to each one of those meetings at least once, so that, and explain not just you have to do this because but there's a good reason to do that.
I think the reasons for doing it are illuminating. It's what you need the onboarding partner for.
Yeah.
Partner is an option.
So
Maybe partner is a good word.
Yeah,
Partner's always a good word, right?
So we, or I, left it more open than saying, here's what we want you to do and why. In each case, we're saying, why do you think? You've looked at the documents, you've looked at the process, you've looked at the list. Why do you think
And that feels like an
you
assignment.
should look?
That feels like an assignment. It feels a little pedantic. So
It's more like so the intention was to use the Socratic method of learning. Ask them a question, make them think about it. And
that to me is the
that's
wrong dynamic. That's like a classroom.
Oh, I thought that was.
I actually.
and typically when you bring people on board, that's what you do, is you send them to a class. And that isn't what the intent was to send them to class, but to give them a classroom-like experience. If that's not what we want, then this really will be pretty different.
I wouldn't, that's not what I would want coming onto this committee. I'm not hearing very many other voices here.
I think this approach, rather than, and I may disagree with, I like partner better than buddy, some of this, but this puts the responsibility on the new person to go and find this information rather than just handing somebody, because most of it is simply going to the website. And I think that's an important skill to have, to be able to know where all this information can be found, rather than having to just hand the information to people to say, here it is.
Yeah.
It's all here on the website. Almost all of it is on the website that we send them to. So maybe the tone is not quite right, but I think the process of asking people to go find out this information for themselves, rather than telling somebody, this is the way we work, here, you go find out how we work.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend.
I have a thought, and this goes back to our last meeting where we start to contemplate whether we should go to every other month. So let's assume we go that way. I'm not saying we are, but let's assume when we onboard new people, we could throw a meeting in that month. And that meeting is the onboarding process. We're all here. We have 2 or 3 new people. And that meeting isn't our regular meeting, it's the welcome to sort of meeting. And so we can they can ask questions, we can, and that might be, I'm just saying that might be one way to do this in the future.
it's an interesting idea, but I suppose that there are times as a result of everyone coming on at the same time that there will be a new graduating class or whatever, but there will also be people who just leave in the middle of the term, right? So, you have to fill them.
So you,
That's you.
Yeah.
That was you, right?
Yeah,
I think I was the
yeah,
only one that
Exactly.
came on when I did.
It's orientation time,
Right.
first week
I
of
I
school.
also think that, I mean, most people who are willing to sit on a committee are gonna have some interest in being on the committee. And they're gonna do the work, right? Because otherwise,
Right.
why would you,
why are you
why would you put your hand up to show up once a month at a meeting? You're likely to have an interest in it. So it's really mostly about pointing them in the right direction so they understand the model. I think having a person to work with, whatever you want to call it, is useful. And I think having a list of all the items to go to is useful. And I'm not too excited about the tone, but I think the tone could be a little less homeworky and a little more to explain, this is good to see these things so you will understand how things work. It's just a tonal thing, but I think you're in the ballpark.
Right,
Right?
same, I feel the same.
So do you guys want to take a stab at changing the tone?
Fine with,
I mean, we're really talking minor
Yeah.
changes, really minor, it's not, no.
I don't have a problem
less
with
folksy.
changing the tone.
Right. Yeah.
May I
More-
add
more
one thing
textbook.
that I
Yeah.
would suggest when I was reading through, just in the process, you have the interview, all the current COC members and then come back to your buddy to discuss. I just wanna add a caution of, don't communicate
Right.
between you.
Right.
I saw this big hub and spoke in front of me as I was reading that, feeling like, oh. So there might, if you are making any revisions, I would just say being cognizant of the Brown Act or something along those lines.
Right,
We might say, interview 2 people.
Right, and
that
don't
way
tell
we
them.
know
And it-
exactly.
And it certainly wasn't meant to be all members,
Right,
so I will change that wording for sure.
Yeah.
But I think, and I didn't hear what you were saying about your concern about that, Megan. What
Oh,
was it?
mine?
Yeah.
Just that we need to be, or that as you sort of were talking amongst yourselves outside of a public meeting, you need to be conscious of the Brown Act and any information that's transmitted among a majority of members. So if you interview 4 or 5 people all of a sudden, and you're communicating between them about one common topic that is under your jurisdiction, it can become a violation sort of inadvertently, so.
Yeah.
So, quick question, so doing something like this, they would be discussing, this document and that document wouldn't be substantive. So with the,
Potentially, but if it's something like, I think that we need to totally change the direction of our annual reporting and we need to be much more, then that's something that will be a substantive discussion. And so just want to be careful of sort of then saying, I talked to Lucy and she feels the same way, or whatever it is.
Yeah, right.
It can build more quickly than you realize.
I do notice something we can add to this document, which has become familiar with the Brown Act. It's not there.
Robertson's.
Oh, Robert's.
I did.
Roberts.
Or what, yeah.
Or
Sorry.
yeah, same difference.
Rosenberg, yes.
So
Those
that
are the
would be, I
much
think that would be
simpler
helpful.
ones, yeah.
Is it a violation of the Brown Act if people send comments on this too, or do all comments have to occur today here?
All comments would need to go to staff and we could incorporate them, but it couldn't go, we can't have the majority of you talking about this document or editing it
Okay,
offline.
so everybody clear on that, if you have any more comments before they go back to rework this, just send it to staff. I'm just repeating that because I'm the newest one here.
Yeah.
So have we reached a relative consensus that we like the overall concept, that the tone could be changed a little bit to, reflect that there is an interest for people to do this, and that instead of demanding stuff, rather put an explanation as to why it's to their benefit to go to each of these meetings. We think you will find this helpful, words like that, and then ditch the talk to everybody thing and change buddy to pick your term. Is that where we are?
Yeah, I would just reinforce, I think what you said, which is that, take away the feeling of it's something that's being taught. But more suggested and more recommended.
So are the authors comfortable with that?
I'm comfortable with that. And,
I will say I have a major nudge. So let me express and see if I'm mishearing. What it sounds like you're asking is that we do a tell them focus. And my knowledge about how people learn is that they learn better experientially, meaning go out and do it rather than being told it.
Well,
So
maybe-
is it a, go ahead.
No, it wasn't tell them why it would be good for them to look at this particular document.
It's informative. I think I would like an informative document, but not a document that assigns me anything. I did it when I came on board. I took that document and
Okay,
I did most of my
I want
assignments.
to make sure that I'm clear because I thought I understood that to me, as a learning experience, it's much better to go to the website myself
Right.
and find this information.
Right.
To me, the tone is suggesting that you do this rather than saying, but what you're saying is you want it all.
No.
Okay.
I don't want anything handed to anybody.
Okay.
I just don't want to be given an assignment.
Okay.
That feels juvenile.
So change
Okay.
the wording so that it does not sound like an assignment.
I'm not suggesting that we spoon feed anybody
Yeah,
anything.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that would also be the wrong tone.
You want to recommend something that we want people to do? I
Isn't
mean,
it
those are two different things.
is-
A suggestion or a recommendation infers that I have an option.
well, you do.
Yeah.
Because
Anybody-
we actually want these people to be up at a certain baseline knowledge in order to be able to participate in these discussions.
I think you
I
want
mean,
to
I
push it.
saw nothing wrong with how it was written. I was ready to approve it, but
Yeah.
because I didn't read that kind of tone into it. But that's maybe it's because I come from a compliance background. It's kind of like, okay, we want you to do this.
You want.
But we're not saying it in a bad way. I'm just saying, these are the things you need to do.
Right, yeah.
So,
Okay,
I'll let you
I mean,
take it
it's-
where you
it-
want, but there is a difference between recommendation and something that we want.
And
people to do.
requirement.
Wouldn't it just try this one more time? Welcome to the COC. We appreciate your willingness to participate in this important organization. In order to be an effective member of this organization, we believe it would be useful to watch each of these three meetings, the board, the whatever those committees are, so that you have a better baseline understanding of how things operate. And here are the list of items we suggest that you look at in detail.
I like that.
Isn't that what we're trying to
That
have?
sounds very
And,
good.
and also the JPA and the ordinance or the foundation.
Yeah, all that stuff, right.
That's the foundation of the
Right.
work that we do in reporting. I mean,
Right.
that kind of a tone.
Yeah, just explaining why this
Yeah,
list is this
absolutely.
list. And-
Absolutely. That's what I was looking for.
Okay.
okay.
Okay, let's move along.
One down.
Martina, we still don't have public attendance?
We do not. And so that last one was an action item. Do we need to vote on it or?
Not at this time.
We're tabling and we're going to discuss again at the next meeting, yes?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No action required.
Okay, next is the 7B, the Code of Conduct and Policies and Procedures. Megan, will you lead that discussion?
Sure. So with the code of conduct and policies, I took a stab at just trying to get to all the greens are those that seem sort of straightforward, and I think were referred to as ministerial in the minutes, that it's things that seem like they would likely be changed because it just, they, either just make no sense, like that you can't remove your members because they're board appointed, you can't as a committee decide to remove your members. So things that would be, taken out as a result of that. So those we thought were sort of the easier items to change. And then I added headings to each of the code of conduct sections so that it would be in the policies and procedures, just so that we could sort of allocate different topics to under the proper headings. And then the yellow was sort of and some of the colors didn't come through perfectly. So then some of the items we sort of thought needed to be discussed more before any changes were made. Yellow being sort of thinking about them as not super controversial, but useful to have a discussion around and decide what to do with them. And then I don't see any reds in this one, actually. Interesting. Maybe those didn't come through. Maybe we didn't have any reds on that. It was on the code of conduct. So if we want to start with code of conduct, then we could go from there to the bylaws, or, because that's the order on the agenda. And see if there are thoughts there, and I can pull up the Word version and make the changes as we go through, if that's useful.
Okay. So we're, everybody looking at the code of conduct? Any opening comments?
I think the big one is to discuss Megan's number 2, MH2. The COC should decide if it wants to continue having a place on committee agendas, and I think that's a really good discussion.
Yes.
That and MH3.
That and what?
And her third comment too, that if the COC wants to preserve, they work together.
Yes, of course. Okay.
And what are we doing with, under policies and procedure? Oh, sorry, you're going to code of conduct first?
Yes.
Yes.
Never mind then.
Well, I would like to say that I think it would be helpful if there was some explanation of what we were trying to do, and then people could say why it didn't work or why they wouldn't want to do that. And then that at least establishes what was in there or why it was in there. Or they might be suggesting that it could be done a different way. But if we get that to that point. So so I'd like to, which one are we talking about? This meeting at
MH2.
is
I want to discuss MH1, but
place
that's-
on committee agendas. Yes.
We'll go back to that.
Okay, thank you.
So I just like, the way I would describe the purpose
Yes.
for that was, we asked for and were given the privilege of a place on the agenda of each agency's sitting subcommittee. This was designed so that we as members of the agency's largest stakeholder group, the public, could have a seat at the table with the agency when matters were being deliberated. It allows us a way to ensure that any of our individual members' questions can be informally asked and answered. It gives the COC itself the opportunity to formally raise any issues of ongoing concern in an open forum. And it allows us a way to be proactive rather than being limited to commenting solely on the activities of the past year. It was also specifically intended that if the COC members had nothing to say, they would not speak at meetings. So I know that you've had some concern about us just not contributing, but that was, I think, part of the bargain, is that we would not waste people's time unless we had something, substantive to.
You're right. I
raise.
have had some concern that we're on the agenda and then, and there's nothing,
Right.
and that's part of my concern, but
Okay.
I'll make that a small c concern.
So it's really, as I say, it's this incredible privilege we have to have a seat at the table. It allows us a sort of dialogue with those who are deliberating, and I just don't see how I don't see why we would forego this privilege. That's all.
Before we get to that, can I ask you, can you imagine an alternative way of getting that?
That is really tricky. I think we did try and think of something, but other than simply raising things as a member of the public and speaking in the trouble with that being that there's a strict time limit, and also there's no back and forth. So if you have a question, they're not going to answer it.
Right. I would think that given a lot of what we've talked about for reporting purposes, that maybe going through Mark is maybe a way.
I just have a question about this, because it's interesting. I get the point you're trying to get to. So we have the tool on an annual basis, of course, of our report, right?
The tool?
And we have a tool on an annual basis when we issue our report of findings, which of course is all through our deliberative process, and the 9 of us go through this whole thing, and then we say, you should fix this, that, and the other thing, right? So it's a big thing. And if we're like a quarter of the way through the year and there's a point of concern, how does it work where we would collectively form a conclusion that it's a concern and then have whoever attends that meeting speak for all of us rather than individually, as compared, I'm just trying to understand the sequence of it.
Generally, I think the assumption was that the member who would be attached to that committee would be the one to voice any concerns. I
Right.
assume that if somebody else is really concerned, said, I've just seen something on the agenda, Pat, you're the one assigned to monitor that, you know, what do you think, is this worth raising, or
Yeah.
would you raise it, or should I raise it, or whatever? That's different, but then there's the full CNC.
Right.
And that could be because, let's say it's something that we've made a recommendation on in the past, and it seems to be heading towards a similar sort of process or project that we raised concerns with before, and somebody could ask the COC could officially ask the question, do you see this as different from recommendation you made here before? You know, is this substantively different, or it's a point in time that you can get clarification rather than saying, well, they did that,
Yes.
and it was exactly the same as the year before.
So what I'm struggling with, and I definitely agree that there is a power that we have here we don't want to give up. But I'm also a little troubled that if it's just one or two members speaking without all of us having reached concurrence, it might be a pet peeve of one or two people that in fact, for which if we were all just got around, we wouldn't reach agreement on, right? So I'm just throwing as an alternative in that this theoretically, if we get our reports out, we have a once a year chance. Would it be possible that if something comes up that bothers either the attendee of the meeting or some of you like follow everything, right? You're really into this stuff. If something comes up that is of interest, that would it, as an alternative, have a mechanism where quarterly at our meeting, we come together and say, is there anything that anyone is bothered about with regards to direction? See if there's concurrence, and then at the next subsequent meeting, speak with the voice of all of us. Just toss that out.
Okay, excuse me, Pat's been waiting to speak.
Sorry.
Well, I understood the initial point, and, you know full well that we didn't want to be a normal COC that just waits to be fed the information at the end of the year and then write a report saying we concur with all the information. But my experience of this mechanism has been that it doesn't work, that we haven't learned anything, we haven't offered any knowledge. It's just kind of an awkward thing that we end up on 4, I guess it is, agendas, and we don't have anything to say, or we don't have a question to ask because the question that we might have had has already been answered in the previous discussion. To me, it would be a better mechanism just to ask Mark. Or, you know, I think we have other ways of expressing our concern, or
Are we expressing his concerns as individuals or as a full COC? That's what I'm trying to
There are two parts to it.
grapple with,
It should be the whole COC.
If I
So
could, I would like
can
to.
Lucy get back to us on that? I'm really interested, but how does it work for all of us?
Wait a second,
May
I'd like to
I
hear what
add
Megan has
something,
to
because I
say.
have a good example of this that may inform us. That at the last executive committee meeting, multiple members, I'm not gonna say the majority of them, but spoke to Mark and I, because the point on the agenda at which it said that it would be a report from the COC, Rebecca came to speak, but never spoke on behalf of the committee, and you were explicit about the fact that you were speaking on your own behalf to points that had been raised during that meeting, but there was never a moment at which you said the full COC feels X, Y, or Z. And so a few of the members said, well, why didn't she, I should have had her speak during public time. That wasn't actually a COC issue, and she was speaking on her own behalf, but using a different part of the agenda. And it was sort of confusing to the committee, because I think it was one of the first times there's been a report, and then it was clear that the report was not a report or a question on behalf of the committee. It was more sort of an opportunity for you to speak. So They felt that that was sort of a misuse of that space and were concerned about it, that would be what would happen going forward. And so asked that that be brought to the attention of the COC. So I think this is a really relevant discussion to have, is sort of what is that, how will that time be used? And from, at least from the executive committee's perspective, the ones that I spoke with, or that Mark spoke with as well, that there was a sense that that was not the proper use of it. And so if that wasn't, then we need to sort of think about how that's handled.
I feel, I mean, we could keep talking about this for a long time. I feel pretty strongly that it diminishes us to have a space on all of these committees and never have anything to say. And on top of that, I really don't think that it's an appropriate, I get why the initial interest was to be there, but I don't think it's the right thing for an oversight committee. And I think it's very, very risky for one or two people to be making comments on behalf of all. I mean, I heard that executive committee, and I felt like it was very easy for it to be confused with perhaps commenting on behalf of all of us. So I think
Rebecca
it
was
would
quite
be,
clear.
oh, I know, I know, but still, because it was at the wrong time, it was, I felt like I found it a little confusing, yes.
You know, to kind of place a timing thing on this, if we look at a combination of our code of conduct and our bylaws, we really can't do anything at the meeting because it requires discussion and some concurrence by the COC. So that doesn't remove our ability to ask questions at the meeting as a member of the public. But if you want to formally ask them, we could always agendize the next meeting, because it's going to take a full meeting in order for us to direct our representative in terms of what they want.
That's right. I mean, to me, that's the only appropriate or reasonable, or whatever the right word to do, and to feel confident as as a committee that we will be represented as a committee. Okay, go ahead, John.
Yeah, so on number 2 there, because in number 2, it's referring to two people, and then they get together and talk and say, if there's something we're gonna work out, who's gonna speak. Would it make sense to maybe revise that to say that if those people have a concern, that instead of talking among themselves, that they, at the next COC meeting, it be agendized, and then that the COC comes to a conclusion as to whether they can then speak for all of us as a.
Well, it's often a shortcut. If you can say, I have a personal question, does this mean that? And they can respond in that period, no, it doesn't. Then no reason to raise it with the COC. If they come back and say, yes, it does, you might then wait for the next COC meeting and say, it's my understanding that they're contemplating this, which means that. Would we like to?
It just goes to the voice, though. Are you the voice of the COC, or are you the voice of you?
Oh, always, unless you're speaking for the CC, always identify yourself as speaking for yourself.
So would it make sense to make it clear that if you ever were to speak for the COC, that it would have to be agendized first at the COC level? Would that solve it?
Oh, definitely. I
Because
think
it
that was implicit.
doesn't say that.
Maybe it didn't say that, but I think that would be.
Maybe that's the way to solve it, right? To say that any individual can speak because you're an individual, but that if you wish to speak for the COC, there should be a mechanism, and the mechanism would be to bring it, because we're going to talk about how the agenda happens later. Bring the item to the chair, and then it gets agendized and discussed at the COC, and then you can speak with your powerful voice with the COC. Maybe that's the answer. It's not likely to happen.
It's an answer. Right? I'll just, to be very clear, oh, I'm sorry, guys.
No, it's okay.
No,
I was just.
And I've had a hand up for a while.
Okay, Rebecca.
My apologies.
So one is, in this particular instance, the issues that I actually had 4 things to bring up. 3 of them were handled during the meeting, so I didn't comment. I commented only on the 4th. But the issues all came up after the agenda came out. So there was no opportunity to have a full conference of all the COC members to discuss it. But it was about that agenda, and it was timely in that we would have wanted an answer then. So leaving it to discuss with the COC and then asking it at the following board meeting would have been a blah. You know, it would have been better just to discuss it amongst ourselves and write them a letter or something. I'm not sure, but it wouldn't have been appropriate to bring it up again at the next meeting. So there's something about the timeliness here. I don't know how we address that, but that.
But
I was gonna say,
I'm sorry, Pat.
Go ahead.
sorry,
Go ahead.
No.
I was just gonna say, if you're asking in the form of question, it also goes back to Megan's number 4, which we haven't covered yet, which is anyone can speak at any time as a member of the public, is what number 4 is suggesting. Is just speak up and say, here's our concern, here's a concern I have. This is my concern, and then bring it to the COC. And that way you can still address the concern as a citizen, aware citizen of what's going on here. Let me put it that way.
You don't get a quick response.
I couldn't get an answer. So, and that was the deal, be able to ask a question, and if they could give an answer, as it turned out, it didn't, but
Yeah.
could have been. Go ahead.
Pat?
I've forgotten what I was gonna say, it's been so long. I just think that there are better ways, and that this being on these agendas and not having anything to say, which is the case most of the time.
Most of the time. Right.
That we're on those 4 agendas, and it's rare that we have a question to ask, something to say. So to me, it just makes us look foolish.
Well, I actually had a very interesting conversation with, I think it was Rachel Hertz, last year. This was soon after our report came out, and it was our agenda item, and so generally it reported, everything's out, and then she came back and asked me directly a question. I think it was to do with staff support or something, to which I could easily respond on the moment. There was no sort of take it back to the COC to get a full consensus. It was just a quick exchange that I think informed her and me. So it was useful. It had no repercussions beyond that. And it asked and answered. It was quick.
I'd also add, I didn't purposefully have a conversation before every session that I was going to with anybody else, or rarely. When I was the lead person about to go into a meeting, I would attempt to do that, but I rarely got together with anybody else ahead of time. I think if we made it a real point to get it at a meeting ahead of time with at least one other person to discuss what's on the agenda, is there going to be anything that we want to bring up, talk about, we would have a much better, more knowledgeable preparedness to be ready to speak during that time, either to give a report, ask intelligent questions, bring up good points, whatever we can get agreement. Now that this may be another issue. If the board only wants us to use it as a committee report, that's a different deal. I thought we had made agreement somewhere, either in our bylaws, somewhere. I thought we had made an agreement that we could also use it for asking questions or opening up discussion.
I don't believe that 2 people, whoever the monitors are, is enough for me to feel confident that I'm being spoken, that my voice is being, I don't want my voice as a member of the COC to be used in that way.
Oh, sorry if I didn't make.
I'm sorry, you might not understand what I mean, but.
No, I think I do. That you wouldn't want me speaking up, having only spoken with one other person for the whole COC. And I wouldn't do that.
Right.
You know, one of the things I want to clarify for, the committee, or at least get a common understanding is, the whole concept of being proactive. Because Pat, you just mentioned a couple minutes ago that, we don't want to wait till the end of the year for corrective action, and that's absolutely true. But the intent was never to have it real time. We could address these issues a month or 2 months later, or whatever shorter span that there was, so you wouldn't literally go till the end of the year to take corrective action.
So I
And in
just-
our case, 2 years, because we're late with
Right.
a report had this happened in July of 2021. So, I think proactivity for us really means getting ahead of it, but not in real time.
Well, I would just make a comparison. So ESP has a non-voting membership, I think it's called a non-voting membership with the Operations Committee. And
ATC.
Oh, ATC. And that this allows them to put some input, those members that are selected to sit on that, to put some input. They're not voting it, they're not deciding things, but it gives them the opportunity back and forth. In other words, the seat at the table where things can be raised, and they might or might not be satisfied with the answer, but at least they've had the opportunity.
But that's
I
a
think it's
technical
fair.
advisory group.
Yes.
But we're looking at
We're not a
subcommittees.
policy group.
No,
No.
we're looking at subcommittees.
Those are policy committees.
We can ask questions.
No, I
Yeah.
think that it really diminishes our credibility and our role as an oversight committee. We're an oversight committee. We're not supposed to be engaging in their activities. In that
That's how
way.
do you oversee? You don't
I
engage
don't-
with activity.
No, I don't think so. I
And
think
we're specific
I think
to-
that's been the whole part of this discussion about what this report writing has been and should be, is working through staff. John?
So I go back to 2 and just reiterate what I said earlier, perhaps the method is that if 2 people that are on a committee have a point of concern, that you have a mechanism in place that it gets elevated to the next COC meeting as a priority item, and then we either reach a consensus or we don't, and then those people can speak for the full COC. And then it gets to Larry's, not instantaneous, but still timely. I mean, maybe that's the
And
solution.
then it gets agendized, it's not an automatic thing on an agenda. I think that's where, to
But you're
me,
saying
it
sort of a
bothers me, is
placeholder.
where it's automatic and then we have nothing to
Now we
say.
have nothing.
I would really like, I'm sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, you're saying it's okay, there's still be a placeholder in every meeting, which the 2 people go back, talk to the COC gives them permission to speak, and they go and they speak it to whatever the committee is.
Exactly, there's
But
subsequent,
is it,
with
is
the
it right
weight
to
of
have
COC.
a space holder, like Lucy's talking about, through the process that's just open to people,
Sure, in
Can
other
we
words,
just keep that?
to just, in other words, so
I'm
when,
trying to find-
when we're on the agenda of whatever the committee is, board or whatever, that unless there is a COC created thing to say, then there's just nothing for them
But
to say.
John, now I
But
think
then you want it held so that you have the possibility.
Yeah, it's kind of.
I would really like to remove the placeholders, and I'd like to just explain how it works, just because I'm not sure you followed this, but if you're a monitor of an ATC, of the ATC, for example, Anne Krelock calls you up ahead of time and says, do you have anything to say? And then you have to say to her no, and I would rather just remove that placeholder altogether.
Worse than that, Ann Krelock calls you up and says, do you want to be on the agenda? And you say, I have no idea because I haven't seen the agenda yet, because I have no idea what you're going to be discussing. And so how do I know whether we're going to have anything to say? So she puts you on the agenda, and then you can call her up and say, we don't have anything to say, but you're on the agenda. So for those 4 meetings, and it's only 4 that we're on the agenda for, executive committee,
In the,
Finance.
it says, executive
Or-
operations, finance,
Operation. ATC.
and any other committey that gives the item on the agenda to the
It's not
COC, and I'm not
ATC,
sure.
it's operations.
It's not-
it's operations.
So back to Kingston's point about having a placeholder. First off, if you haven't even seen the agenda yet, then you can't get it to the full COC to speak for the COC.
Right.
So the sequence has to be there'll be a meeting, they say something, it bothers you, two of you, you say next COC meeting, we have a point of view, and then once we have a point of view, then we go back and we can now speak collectively. So to Kingston's point about having a placeholder, that the chair of each of those 4 committees would know that they should check with us to see whether we have something to officially say, and if we don't, they drop us from the agenda, and if we do, they'll be aware that we're on, so.
Yeah,
Doesn't that work?
that would be great if it works that way, the way it works right now.
I understand
For
that.
3, Ann Prelock was the only one that never understood the process, so she would call up. But for all the 3 others, you just automatically end up being on the agenda. And then you have to call up and say, we don't have anything to say. So then Mark says, I've been informed that the COC does not have anything to say.
And shouldn't our comments be limited to our responsibility, which is around finance on top of it? So we're not, if they're talking about a project, we as the COC aren't responding to that project, but we individually could say, well, why are you doing it over here? I live over there, and the real problem is, so you're talking with yourself.
Yes.
I think that, for instance, in that example, that they could be talking about saying in the current work program, some new NRGs. And that is, a distinct issue as it applies to the tax measure. Are they working solely on, for wildfire prevention? We've got the formula that maybe they should be apportioned. So we would just say, double checking, unless this is grant money, we would of course be, are you assuming, because you put it in form of a question, that it would be proportioned and
Right.
So it's not a personal question.
Right.
It is just a question.
But I don't think it's a question that would have to be asked in real time. I think you could make a note, come back to the COC, say,
Go to Mark.
in the such and such committee, I had some concern about this. Mark may have an answer around it that satisfies everybody. If not, it's something we look into further. Okay, I think that we need to move
Do you want me
forward.
to read, if that's what the direction is, sort of, to?
Do you have something?
I just was writing as you guys were
Hopeless
talking.
deadlock.
If that's I don't know that it's a majority yet, but I just thought I would throw this out there. So, number 2, before a meeting of the executive committee, the operations committee, the finance committee, or any other committee that gives an item in its agenda for the COC, both observers who've been referenced previously, that there's 2 monitors assigned to these committees shall communicate following the committee meeting to determine whether they have questions to be raised with the committee. If so, they should discuss the questions and bring the issue to the full COC, at the following meeting, that's where I was going.
So the only modification we're looking for is to be a placeholder rather than to be on the agenda. Am I
Oh, I
understanding?
see what you mean, so that,
Well, no, there's
I
2
was
things.
referring to placeholder as already on the agenda.
And I think there's 2 things. One is that when you say we, are you speaking for the COC?
Just the
And
understanding.
to speak for the COC, you have to have all of us have a
Yes.
conversation.
Yeah.
So if we all have a conversation and then we decide we want to move forward, then.
Yes, right.
So, but to me, placeholder means we're on the agenda. And I would
Oh, I
rather
meant
see
it
us not
differently.
be on the agenda.
Pat, I meant it a little differently, that
Okay,
within the structure of this organization and their meetings, that we're not on the agenda, but there's a placeholder in place
There's
where
a
if the
possibility,
COC feels a need to speak, it can be added to an agenda.
that's fine. with me.
Versus having 3 minutes of open time. That's the only difference, instead of being in open
Yeah.
time.
Megan, can you remove the language, both observers assigned to these committees shall communicate to discuss if they have any questions to be raised at that meeting, and instead insert something that if observers have concerns.
I liked Megan's putting
think
it
that's what-
after the meeting rather than before.
yeah, that was how
Okay.
the change.
Yeah.
So I can see what it is.
So does it sound like at this point we need to maybe spend some more time working on the wording of this thing?
Yeah.
Maybe just in the interest of not trying to do the whole thing
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Yeah.
We could maybe move
Okay.
along.
Yes.
But we're getting there,
Conscious
we're
of the
getting
time,
there.
yeah.
Yes, okay.
So the majority is comfortable with that sort of idea and
Mhm.
having it go to.
Yeah, Megan invariably, the burden falls on Mark. Because
Yeah.
what he needs to do is to pull the head or the chair of the COC to say, do you have anything to this agenda? That's your placeholder.
Yeah.
It's not like a paragraph, template.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Well, he'll know because it would have already been agendized at a COC where we discussed it,
Right.
right?
Right.
So
Right.
we'd
So
be well
instead
aware
of it being any committee that gives an item on its agenda for the COC, it would actually be any of the committees that are being observed or monitored by the COC monitors. At which point those monitors would signal to Mark, or signal to the COC, we need to have a discussion about this and the
Such and such.
COC.
With the exception, we monitor all the meetings and the board's not going to let us, give us a place. So those 4 had agreed to give us a place. I don't know if any others would. But the board for sure
We
is
can
not
be
going to give
explicit
us.
about the actual committees, okay.
But we can wordsmith that,
Yeah.
so I think we're all in more or less agreement.
Are we saying in principle, yes, we're gonna keep our penciled in place to be on the agenda? And now, are we gonna call them or are they gonna call us?
No, what we're saying is that if you as an observer at one of these committees that has up to now given us a place, if you see something that you think needs to be discussed, you bring that back to the full COC first.
Got that part?
And
Yeah.
then if the full COC decides that we would like to speak, we would like to make our concerns known to that committee, then we all agree on what will be said. And
Got
then we reach out and get on their agenda.
But that would have been too late because they would have made this is their deliberation period. And if we come in a month later and say, well, going back to that item on that agenda, we have this and this and this, it's irrelevant. They've made the decision.
You wouldn't have had a chance anyway because you'd have to take it back to us and we'd have that discussion.
Well, if that's the case, then you literally can't ask a quick question and have it answered, and that no problem. Their answer could be absolutely straightforward. No reason to bring it back to the CAC. But if you
Except as an
have,
oversight committee, if you have a concern, it's helpful to bring the concern back and for that concern to be stated at some point in time.
but a question could be asked,
individually.
before you're
As
certain
an
that you have a.
individual.
Yeah, you can ask the question, but if you're just a member of the public, you won't get an answer. Whereas if you're agendized in this way, they'll certainly listen. If they'll ask and they'll respond.
Then I
You
think
can
the
ask
question
and
needs to come back to Mark then, right away. I don't think we should be speaking at these meetings on that way. I think that the question needs to come back to Mark instead.
But how are you going to deal with the timing?
Is this all theoretical or do we have instances?
Yeah, that's what I was
It's-
trying
There have been instances of communication where questions were asked and answered. Nothing went back to the COC and I'm terribly disturbed about this, we have to have a full thing. So a few questions have come up and we've never actually formulated a group. We need to express this, but because we're in real time, we can just make the inquiry, move on.
But you
But
can do that as an individual and
But
they
not
certainly
get a
know that,
response.
well, you certainly know, they know who we are. Right?
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Yeah, but if they've announced, we will not be responding, they're gonna say,
I'm not sure, so if it's an agenda item and it is
They
public
can
forum,
respond.
then they can respond and they will respond to questions related to that agenda item.
I have heard that they do not respond.
They won't add a new agenda item that wasn't contemplated before the meeting, but I was actually just thinking about that specifically because if we look at the question from the last executive committee meeting, by the time all the items that were commented on by Rebecca had come up, action sort of had already been taken on those items or a discussion had already been tied up. And then at committee reports, she raised some issues associated with those previous items. So I think that was where the confusion among the committee members came up was they said, well, why wouldn't she have just spoken during the discussion item? Because that was sort of where her
But
voice could have been heard.
spoken just as a member of the public.
Well, which is what she spoke as anyway, so, in
Well-
that instance, so,
think she spoke as an individual who's on the COC.
Right, well, I guess that's that was the
That-
confusion among them, because they were taking that as like, oh, I guess she's just speaking on her own behalf. They didn't know exactly what her role was in that moment, so.
If in fact she was speaking as a member of the COC, that's even more problematic.
A
I
member
did
of the
not.
public who is on the COC.
I think you said
not
just as an
for-
individual, if I remember.
I
right.
absolutely did.
Yeah,
I think Megan raises a very important point here in that where we are on the agenda of these meetings, if decisions have already been made, we're not, if something is an action item, a vote has already been taken, we are way down there at the bottom. So it wouldn't make any difference, that whether we, you're saying, well, it's too late for us to have an influence.
Well,
But
I mean,
they're
I
not
think if there
gonna
were
re-vote.
really an issue that we were terribly concerned about, we could ask them, have that agenda item put earlier and say, we know you're gonna be coming up to discuss this.
John has something you want to say?
Yeah, I was gonna say that how it works at council meetings anyway is that, I think you said this, or someone said this, that as the public speaks, the ruling body does not have to respond. There doesn't have to be a dialogue,
Right.
right? So, I mean, typically what happens if you're in a council meeting, there's like 500 people lined up going, I hate this. You just, you wait for your time to go by and then, okay, then you move on. But if it's something where it's just one person and it's actually an interesting topic, typically what happens, you'll make your statement, you will not have a back and forth dialogue. But when the public time is complete, then the chair would say, there are some issues raised that I think we should dialogue on, right? And that's just, I just want to, that is how that typically operates.
Yes,
So,
that's what I
so
was
what I'm
saying.
struggling with is that certainly the COC members who are following these commissions have a much higher level of interest and knowledge than most people in the general public does. But at the same time, they are not speaking for the full COC. That's the rub. So you're stuck between timeliness, your comment about, can I just get this thing answered? On the one hand, timeliness, and then also the full weight of the COC. So again, to what I was saying earlier, if you speak as an individual, they damn well know who you are, and that could elicit a response. If it doesn't elicit a satisfactory response, then to me, the logical thing to do is again, to come back and have the full COC say, we are troubled by this, so it's not instantaneous, and then we bring it forward as I described earlier. So it's kind of like a splitting the baby a little bit,
Okay. I think we should move on, and Megan, do you have enough information to try to draw up what you think we're saying?
yes, I'll take a stab at it and then you guys can.
I suspect we may be talking further about it.
It's tricky.
It is tricky. Okay, then you have, you're still on the floor here, Megan. with-
Oh, sorry, so
bylaws.
yes, then 4 is, I think would remain unchanged because
We're gonna come back for me.
that,
Yeah, you
Right,
got yours,
you need to, right, that comes out.
4.
It's members may assist the MWPA Board of Directors in the process of filling vacancies, that whole
Oh, yeah.
thing needs to come out.
Never
Is
thought
that
it
4 in the
should be.
bylaws or
What?
4 in
Never
the,
thought it should have been,
4 in the
What's-
policies?
that is, oh, sorry, you know what, we jumped, are we done with our discussion of the policies and, because we were on code of conduct and policies.
Right.
Rather than-
Actually, we didn't discuss your first comment, and I know that Kingston wants to discuss that,
On the policy.
on transparency.
And that's
So I think
bylaws.
that's in the bylaws, so we're still on code of conduct and.
Unless we want to move that.
No, I think, are you guys ready to move on to bylaws? Because I think,
I have,
Kingston had.
no, I have some.
Okay.
I wanna go back to number 1, which is about the transparency discussion. And there's no other way for me to describe it, tell you, but I'm the taxpayer representative on this committee. I represent cost and I believe most of the taxpayers in this county. Transparency is an absolute critical, issue for us. We do not look at government necessarily with the same eyes that you do, especially if you served in office. We tend to be a little more skeptical. We want to observe what's going on. We believe in trusting you, but we like to verify. Okay? And we do a lot of that. Okay, and that's our very nature. All right. So when we formed the initial bylaws, when they went to and we asked about transparency, I asked for that, and everyone automatically agreed. So this was just a natural thing to have as part of the process. No, it's not in the JP agreement, it's not in the founding documents, but everyone seemed to agree at the time it was critical. Now it's being questioned, all right, and I'm saying to you, first of all, I was the head of this committee, chair of the Transparency Committee for years. I think we've done a very good job. I don't think we're finished. I think there may be things coming up in the future that we have to look at. Certainly, making sure that everyone is compliant, whether it's Brown Act or whatever. That's within our purview. We're not trying to make policy, but we are always looking for things that are important, whether it's mission creep or whatever, in an organization. And I think that's why it has to continue. I've talked to my board, and this is a critical issue. If you decide to remove the Transparency Committee, and basically not be transparent, I can only tell you I will take it up with my board, and my board will take it up with your board. So
Yeah, I think the last meeting we kicked it around, we said it, as I recall, the conversation was that we should continue at least for another year. I think it's where we left, right?
Yeah, but it shows up here just.
Yeah, where does it here that it's being
I
removed? I'm
wanted
confused.
to
what
get
it
us
is.
back
I'm just-
somehow.
It's like we don't know
Okay, I
what we're
think
doing.
what's happened
I'm trying
here
to
is
put the
that
issue
you
right.
deleted
No, I agree with
I
you.
want it
Yeah.
on board.
So everyone jumped to the bylaws and we weren't done with
Right.
policies and procedures yet,
I-
as far as I know. So,
Now, I'm confused about it because I'm looking at code of conduct and policies and procedures.
Right.
And on page 2 of that, you've got a section on the annual report. And you
Yes.
deleted, COC may raise an issue and communicate with the board about any transparency issues of concern to the COC.
oh, yes,
And you
I'm
made a
sorry.
comment above that,
Yes,
and
I'm
that's
sorry, I
what
was looking at
Kingston
the,
asked to talk
I'm just-
about.
yeah,
I just,
so you wanna keep that's
if it says
absolutely.
transparency, keep it in. That's all
Yes,
I'm
that
saying.
is up to the committee to decide. It was, that last meeting, I wasn't sure where we left it off,
No,
but
no.
it sounded like there was some,
Yeah.
So
I just wanted to
I
be
think
clear.
it seems like we've jumped ahead, and I know we're gonna be talking about transparency again later. But
Probably
it's
not.
I think maybe we've covered it for now.
Well, let's have establish the basic principle. We
Yes.
can work on
Right.
corollaries next.
Right.
all right?
Okay,
I am
Are
a
we
little
all-
confused though that, so in this section on code of conduct and policies and procedures, what was deleted about transparency that wants to be added back? I'm just confused.
she deleted in green there,
Oh,
okay?
Oh,
What
I
page,
see.
what
Yeah,
item
okay.
number?
right there.
Um,
Yeah, so you wanna put that back in, I
Yep.
agree with you.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
it's page 2,
yeah, so do we all think it's a good idea to leave it back in?
yeah, we can leave it back in.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Cool, all right. I was just confused how it all fit together.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, originally it was written where it said Ralph Brown Act, but I would make it broader and just say open government practices,
That's fine, thank you.
you know,
Yeah.
because that would, It
In
would be
compliance with
inclusive.
government practices,
Open
yeah,
open government
Yeah,
practices.
which would include the Brown.
Right,
Great.
Which does, well, we're not yet on the bylaws, but
That comes later.
okay, now we can move on.
Cool. So we'll see this again.
Yes.
Okay.
I knew these were all not action items.
Rarely do we have action.
good tidy up there. This is a big mess. Formatting, comments.
yeah, I got excited to be able to put some of the basics in.
By the way, Mark has a Marin Voice today that was published a couple hours ago.
Oh,
Oh,
really?
did it come out?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
About,
Yeah, on Maui
Oh,
and
yeah.
comparison,
Yeah.
and be prepared,
Great.
be prepared.
Did you all watch the thing on Maui?
I haven't
I recorded it, haven't seen it.
It's really
It's, you
That's
won't,
really good.
for those of us who are completely in the know, you won't learn much, but it was well done.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so for the same issue, I think along transparency lines does come up in the bylaws, which is why I got a little bit lost there for a second, so my apologies. All right, so starting from the top. Do you agree with the changes that are sort of listed as green?
You just want to do this by page, probably the easiest way.
Oh, sure.
On page 2, Article 4 down, 7, you deleted to assess transparency.
Right, so we're gonna add transparency
So
back in throughout.
are we talking about Article 3? And Board of Directors is highlighted. I mean, that's what we had agreed, that we don't have any authority.
Right.
So is that what you wrote in? Or just to see what, so it's item, after item 5, Article 3, organization.
Oh, yeah, I don't know why that's, let me see, interesting,
Okay, it maybe just, okay,
that was
it's something else, yeah. Article,
There's some wording when I read this, and I haven't seen it on there, but about drawing lots. And that doesn't need to be.
It's right here. Each
that
member
do-
of the committee shall serve for a term of 3 years. However, to provide staggered terms, the initial committee members shall draw lots.
We
Right,
don't
that
need
was-
to put draw
that was
lots
how
in
it
there.
was done the very first.
That was nice.
So it's old, so you don't have to, you don't have to edit it, it's just history.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it doesn't,
So-
you're saying it doesn't actually have to be deleted, it's just.
It's just history.
Okay.
Well, oh, okay.
It's just history.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're down here in Article 4,
Yes.
correct?
Could we go back to Article 2? The purpose, the wording is sort of awkward about which tax ordinance or JPA, and they're kind of mixed in awkwardly together. Could we make a suggestion about how to make that ultimately clear? Or is that picking nits?
It's up to the committee, if you guys wanna make the changes, absolutely.
Well, I think that, I mean, we've been talking about this forever, I mean, it's clearly that we want to focus that they're consistent with Measure C. And at the same time, we want to make sure they're consistent with the JPA and that, that don't follow the 60-20-20. So why don't we just say it, that we're doing both, right?
Consistent with the founding documents.
Yeah.
The first line of the,
Yes.
of the section.
So if I took a stab,
Well, it says the Measure C parcel tax division, and it doesn't say JPA,
it does later.
As specified in
Oh,
section 8
that's
of
true.
the
Yeah,
JPA.
okay, maybe this is, are we all good with Article 2?
I'm fine with it.
If I'm the only person not okay, then let it go.
Let it go.
Okay.
Moving on.
So moving on to Article 4.
Article 4, okay.
I have a question on 8, but let's see if there's anything
Yeah,
before
8,
8.
I think needs to come out.
I don't know what it means.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That was
8
a
comes
question
out.
I had too, I was like, I
Yeah.
don't think they do anything with
No.
this, okay.
Okay, so we agree 8 comes out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you've highlighted 7 and removed to assess transparency.
So we're adding that back in.
Adding that
Right,
back in.
Yeah.
okay.
Well, so
Do we mean,
Karen, I just wanted to give a little explanation as to why we put transparency in there. Because, so this is the same, but we are a body created by law. We're not a natural creature born into the world with rights and interests and reaches and so as we're created by law, we have limitations as to our powers and authorities. We have what's expressly given to us in the language of the statute. We have what's implied. And then on the basis of government, and I don't really think it applies to COCs, what's essential to go to its function. So perhaps it would be, for us, it would be essentially we must meet. That would be an essential kind of to fulfill our function. But so it's really expressed and implied. So we went through this and we decided that we were the only express responsibility we've been given is to comment on the Measure C. We're comfortable that it's implied that we will also do the work on the JPA. But when it comes to reaching general principles of good governance, that transparency part was considered to be a way of us asking questions and going in other places. I don't think it's particularly elegant. I think we could do a better job by simply saying, the committee will also consider, assess, and if necessary, report on principles of good governance such as accountability, transparency, and efficiency. And that would just give us the right to make a comment when we see something. For instance, John's, or the point in our report where we're talking about grant programs, and it's definitely within the JPA agreement that everybody's getting their grants programs together. But we have a further comment, which is to say that is very inefficient or it's very complicated. And so by having our bylaws say that we can look at and comment on, I think we've given ourselves permission to reach there where we, strictly speaking on the statute, we haven't got it.
You're just essentially extending, well, I agree with you, by the way.
Yeah.
We're just extending on the language.
I would, if necessary, take off the.
Where is it? There's a thing where you can record.
It would be a new
Yeah.
responsibility, and just put principles of good governance as one of our areas of purview, which would include transparency, efficiency, and accountability.
That seems like a pretty big
Yeah, that's a little broad.
expansion. I
Right,
think
right.
that when the board reviewed the idea of this transparency piece, it was like, oh, well, they're already gonna be at meetings if they're doing it, to give them and this is just would be my take on that proposal, that that's expanding the power of the committee.
Well, it is, because that's what we were promised, in the sense that we were given an incredibly narrow scope of review, which when we brought it up in the negotiations, we said this is not just the usual, it's actually narrower, since we weren't even listed in the JPA agreement as responsible for that, though we're comfortable we've got there.
Larry has something you'd like to say.
You know, I think there's this recurring reference to what was negotiated. Okay, let me finish. We have to go with what's written.
Indeed. And so what we want to do is write in.
But I don't think that we have the authority to rewrite or to write.
Well, I was trying to find the language, because the language says specifically, to kind of align with what you're saying, it says that the committee shall adopt a report describing the extent to which the funds have been spent consistent with the tax measure and provide feedback to the board of directors. Feedback to the board of directors is very broad statement.
It is, except it's ambiguous because there's no comma there.
Yeah.
So it's not 100% hang
But
on.
some people are interpreting that there should be a comma there, and that's the debate we keep having.
Yeah.
Yeah, comma or not. So, as I say, my understanding from
Steve
conversations
Douglas
with Steve
always
Raab and with Matthew Heimel and others was that when we were told we could expand our purview through the bylaws, this is one thing we would be doing. And I do think, by the way, it's deeply not our place to look at principles of good governance. It's not like we're telling them policies, and it's simply, are we seeing efficiency, accountability, and transparency? And that I would say, almost is implicated in our job if we've been given a broader, more general scope of review. Exactly.
I think that's the tricky piece, is that I was not there in the negotiations, so I look to the founding documents and say, oh, the COC is a financial reporting committee, which is what most COCs do. Like, I guess I'm obviously, this is up to the committee to propose, and that's fine. My take on it is, when you do look at the documents, it's a narrower
I think
reading,
so
and
too.
I don't have the background you have in those negotiations, but this is what the voters voted on. So that's where I'm hesitant to sort of not acknowledge.
But speaking specifically to the recommendation we've all concluded is reasonable about having the various funds in all the different buckets at the same time, that was something that was right in front of us that we saw, and we said we're going to comment on it, and I think we're allowed to comment on it because of this language, provide feedback to the board of directors. So to me, the wording that you're suggesting is just aligned with that. It just basically says, if we see something, we can say something.
Okay, but I actually
It's
don't think we need to make a change in order to do that. I think we can just do it, and then if.
Well, I think we can just do it, but somehow among ourselves, we have this big struggle about this.
Okay, but it's just that if,
You know?
you know, I think our relationship with the board is excellent. I think they're interested and responsive to what we've done. I don't see there being a giant fight, but there's an inherent tension between two bodies, one of which has oversight responsibilities of the other. And we've seen it in the grand jury, we've seen it a number of times. We make a comment and the responding board or entity says, you know, we don't think this is an issue at all, and they can't say to the grand jury, it's not your business, but they can say to us, you're really outside of your lane. And if we can just
But I don't
give
think that if we
ourselves
change our bylaws,
a
that we're
general
going to be able to say to them that we wrote our bylaws, and our bylaws say that we are in our lane.
exactly, so if we just lay in, if we put in general principles of good governance, such as we're in our lane, we've got ourselves permission.
We didn't say general principles of good.
No, I'm suggesting it.
You know, at that point, it becomes very subjective.
Well,
Whereas there's
we-
nothing subjective about reviewing the financials or trying to establish whether you're in compliance with open meeting practices.
Larry?
I feel this really falls to the board of directors, because the board itself has competing interests between this different. So the good governance should be their responsibility, not our oversight necessarily. That's why they're elected, and maybe I'm putting too much faith in elected individuals, but there's almost this need for each to take care of their own there, not a need, but you wanna make sure you're getting what you're supposed to get for your district, correct? So that there's sort of a check and balance right there, where the entire board doesn't gain if they do something that the COC doesn't agree with.
So
I just don't see that happening. That's
in
my
our
point.
comment in our last report, where we say, have a look at this grant program. It's you know, sort of duplicative, whatever, it's complicated, whatever the language was. How are we authorized to say that?
I think from that sounds.
From the feedback to the board?
Yeah,
I
But
think
we've
it's
got the issue with the
yeah.
cover.
yeah.
I don't know why that's an issue. I just read it.
I mean, we can always,
give feedback, right?
Sorry. yeah, I agree. We can always feedback, we can always give feedback.
So, you know, so here is a different privilege that we've given, which is to write our own bylaws.
Yeah.
Right.
And we don't, the two privileges that we were given, which was to sit at the table, have a seat at the table, and to write our own bylaws, are essentially not what you would like to do. You're simply giving up these powers.
I don't know if I see this power, power to me,
Yeah, I don't see it as
I don't
power.
see
Yeah,
the
I
power
just-
either.
comment on areas.
We have a fiduciary responsibility to the
exactly.
public.
Yes.
Okay, that, they're very clearly stated what they are, and what you're suggesting goes outside that.
I think we actually need to
Makes
move on right now. We have too many other things, and we are gonna, I guess, maybe, as Rebecca pointed out in the beginning, we're gonna wanna
Kingston
table some of
wants
these
to say
things, but I don't see the need to change that at this point in time. And I don't think that you have broad agreement to do so, so we could continue to talk about this for a long time, but I don't think there's broad agreement to make a change.
My reaction is that I agree with all the words you said, because I think we already have that capability. And I think we're debating among ourselves something that we can do because we're doing it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I mean, we're spending all this time running
That's partly why I
around.
think we need to move on.
Yeah, but because I think we're doing it.
thank you, Chair.
And until such time as we find
Yes.
ourselves restricted, then I think we're okay.
Okay.
I wanna say one thing.
Sure.
We're talking about fiduciary duties, and again, I come back to trust but verify. I mean, you're making sausage, okay? Yeah, just like everybody else, just everything, you got taxpayer money.
Yeah.
And making sausage, you don't want we have the right to look and see how they're making the sausage.
Absolutely.
If the sausage is being made the wrong way, then we have a duty ourselves, as an oversight committee, to bring it to the board's attention.
Right.
Absolutely.
Just say, let's not get too far up on the pedestal, okay?
Which is exactly what we're doing, right? 'Cause we're saying, if you got a full-time employee that's only 50% working for us, we're gonna talk about it.
No, exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, we're literally doing what we're supposed to be doing, so I think we're doing a good job.
Okay.
No, I'm saying to date, yeah, fine.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, we have to be able to look at things. I mean,
Yeah.
Inspect.
Well, if we're
explore.
sticking with our very narrow review, we can't. Because the tax measure itself is referred to in the JPA agreement. So, I mean, I agree with you, I think the feedback that it does give us.
Yeah, I think.
But I think it's a very thin little peg to hang.
I agree it's a thin peg, but it is a peg we got, so let's use it.
Okay. We are now at the one action item of the day.
No,
No.
I got another comment.
Yeah, I've got a couple of comments.
Oh my
too.
goodness, on the
Nice
bylaws?
try, Jen.
Yes. Well, I think that's something that you put in, but
Sorry.
no, I think, and I am glad I am no longer the chair, but the chair, right now, the chair only has power to preside over meetings. And I believe that the chair needs to have, in consultation with staff, the power to set the agenda.
I agree.
And I believe that the chair ought to have power to establish committees and appoint the members to the committees.
Mhm.
That there are too many times when something comes up in between meetings, or if we're in a meeting, whose hand goes up first? And those two are, I believe, a part of the bylaws, and I think that Megan wrote in wording in there, but I think those need to be powers in addition to presiding over the meeting.
I agree. And the way it works at council meetings is that it's extremely collegial, because most of the time, if somebody wants to add something, it gets added, right? Now, if it becomes controversial, because it does happen every once in a great while, one or two people really have a desire that the rest of the council doesn't have, then it literally comes to a vote at a future meeting. There's that mechanism is in place.
For the agenda.
For the agenda item, and similarly for subcommittees, typically what happens is, hands raised up and you figure it out, but we've always allowed the mayor, which rotates every year, to make those decisions. So that's right in Larkspur also, right? So.
Yeah, but I'll give you a counter to that, just a matter of thought was something I did. Okay, like 11 months into my 12-month term, somebody wants to come in and sell marijuana downtown. And I said, not on my watch, Chris, next mayor, and I'm not putting on the agenda. So, I mean,
Well,
that's where it becomes a two-edged sword.
Well, we had a process for that. And
Yeah,
what
there's a
happened,
process.
you'd have to say, someone could bring it and say, no, I do want
Yeah.
to sell dope down in Larkspur, and then you'd have a vote, right? And then it would be either on or off the agenda.
But if the mayor is controlling the agenda, he simply won't put it on for discussion.
What would happen was that it would be then formalized in a vote, and then it would have to be,
But how would you even?
The mayor could be overridden.
Discuss it.
because it's in the bylaws of the council. The
That
council,
some matter that it hasn't been discussed can be put on the agenda with a
Correct.
vote.
correct.
I see.
Yeah, it's a mechanism.
Can it be put on the agenda with the Brown Act? It has to be posted.
Subsequent,
so we have-
it's
right.
subsequent.
So, with regarding subcommittees, how does that work with the Brown Act?
The Brown Act for subcommittees that are made up solely of less than a quorum, which is what
Yeah, that can be
I
done.
That can be done
offline.
Yes.
I
Okay.
can't count.
All right.
My turn. I'm with you on the agenda, I think. But subcommittees, my problem is we've been fighting amongst ourselves so much, the rancor that isn't here. In the past, we've actually been very collegial. It's a very informal process in terms of subcommittees. We basically self-select amongst ourselves. We haven't needed a chair to basically dictate from on high. I mean, to me, you have a chair, that's a lot of power, and I'm not ready to give a chair this time, given where we've been and how much fighting we've had, that kind of power to play those, not play games, but to have, we're doing fine the way we are with our subcommittees. People are stepping up and handling it.
Fair enough.
I just, if we could push this out another 6 months or something, and see how everything works. I'm much happier. It's a contentious issue, I prefer just to push it down.
Well, you know, something that I said to Mark, and then I later thought of a corollary, one of our problems that we have is we don't trust each other.
Right.
And the corollary to that is we have to be trustworthy, that we have to consider everybody else, and we have to be willing to say our opinion, but then listen to the opinions of other people. And I think the fact that we don't trust the chair to, in an emergency, appoint a committee is just not quite right.
Well, can we split the data and say that it strikes me that we're moving in a very positive direction.
Mhm.
And Kingston is only proposing we just delay this one particular item for 6 months. Why don't we just delay this item for 6 months and deal with it then?
Okay.
You know, I mean, that's, you know, I mean,
Is
it's
it
like,
an action item? Do we need to?
well, we're working on
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's gonna come back to us again.
Okay.
So we do have a concurrence that the chair should set the agenda.
Set the agenda.
Right.
Well, but I'm still taken by Larry's point, which is, I guess what you're saying.
Yeah, subject
It would
to,
be a month, yeah.
yeah, so it's usually collegial, and if it becomes not collegial, then you just do a vote.
It partly just
You
enables
can
the
just steal that
chair
from
to
any
try to
council's
coordinate,
charter.
you know, reasonably coordinate
Yeah.
the agenda.
Like-
It's not so much.
Today's
To try to
agenda
keep
is
something.
so long.
Right, if I had
We're
any
not gonna
control
make it.
over it,
It's
we
quarter
might
to
not be
five, by
doing
the
it
way.
this way.
Yeah, it's 4:45,
Moving right along.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't mind staying here. It's hot outside.
Starting to get hot in here, everybody.
It would bring it, please bring in dinner for us.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, there's some interesting TV.
Are we past-
I've got one more thing on this section, if I may. And that is the election of a chair and vice chair and a one-year term. So I actually think one-year term is a good idea. I'm thinking of the flow of how things operate. So the year closes in June, right? And then if you change in December, the likelihood of us being done with our report within 6 months of the end of the year, it doesn't seem like that's realistic right now. So would it make sense to have do it on a yearly basis, but do it based on a June start date,
Now, I would like to say.
or even March?
I
Yeah.
would like to go take a step back a tiny bit, and I think that 6 months works well. And one of the reasons for that is that by doing it only 6 month term, everybody gets a chance. And I think we get more buy-in as a committee if we all have taken responsibility for this, rather than, because if it's a year, 3 people out of a whole term ever get to, that I personally think 6 months is, has worked well for us. And I wouldn't like to see it change to.
Participation levels go up when everybody feels
Right.
that they have a
Yeah.
chance to join
And
in.
I don't think that, I mean, the role of the chair is so limited that I don't think that there's a huge learning curve. I mean, I just need to know when to say, Martina, are you ready? Is there anybody in public?
I don't know, it's just
It's a good experience if you ever want to run for public office. Then you'll know
It's a
how to do
credential.
this.
It
And
may
then
perhaps,
try to
it
keep
may
things
perhaps
moving
discourage.
is another.
But let me throw this into the mix, and this
Yeah.
goes back to what I said much earlier. If we decide to meet every other, then the chair is only chair for 3
That's true.
meetings.
Oh,
Look at it that way
Yeah, that's
too.
Is that
another
on,
big
is that
question.
Yeah.
on this?
No,
It's not on here.
Okay.
no.
the point of every other is at some point when we become more mature
Yeah.
and we really can speed through our process, we may not have to meet every month.
Well,
Who knows?
I think
Right.
for
It doesn't
now,
even change to a
leave
year.
it at 6 months, and then when we get to where we think we
Sure, why
can
not?
speed through these.
Then
At the
we
rate
can-
we're going, we're still gonna be talking about the bylaws.
Review.
Right.
Whatever.
To your
Right.
point though, perhaps if we were to change to 1 year, then people should be appointed for the fiscal year and not for the calendar year, because it's a little bit mixed up right not changing.
That's,
For now,
yeah,
yeah.
if I was to pick a date, honestly, a date to have a changing of power, you'd wanna have it for a whole cycle, right? And your cycle is not gonna be done by December.
Right.
Unless by some miracle we get our reports out that fast, which would be awesome, but you know.
I do think the first 6 months, one is on the committee when the report is being written by others, it's confusing. Okay,
So we're
Let's
just gonna
move
leave it
on.
at 6 months.
we're
and-
gonna leave it at 6
Leave it
months.
at 6 months.
I just changed it back to 6 months, and then I'm sorry, is it January, or when do you? want
Every
to keep it
6 months.
January?
We're
Every
still
6
at January,
Okay,
and then
January
we
and
might
July.
change it if we
Perfect,
change
okay.
it to a year, right?
Well,
No,
it's
we're
every
proposing
6
we do it
months,
every
it's
6 months.
January
It's January
and
and June.
July.
Yeah.
so-
Okay.
Right.
And I do think, I don't know that you picked up on this, but I think that members should come on new in January, because I think it takes 6 months to get ready to start working on a committee.
Well, it happens just when it happens, right? And when is the thing?
It's December is when people come on.
December 1, yeah.
Okay, so,
No, they come on January 1st.
Okay, well,
Oh,
right.
sorry.
that's
Okay.
right.
so you think that's okay?
I think that's perfect,
Okay.
right now.
Right.
For some reason, I think my first meeting was December. Okay,
Okay.
the last page of this, conduct of business.
Yeah.
And you want to make it not a majority
Well, there's
for to
action to
amend it.
remove a member, we don't get to.
Yeah,
remove members
that's,
anyway,
that's
so
out,
that's out.
but what, are we saying that the bylaw amendment is a supermajority, or we just want to go back to a majority? Is that,
Yeah,
is that,
that
sorry,
was-
was that what you were asking?
No,
Jennifer,
the way this was written before was where the bylaws, did
Members
they
present.
require a super majority?
It was, I think, members present instead of members of the full committee.
So in other words, if you only had 5 or 6 people,
right.
you could change stuff, but if there was, you're gonna change the bylaws, you need 9. That's what
You
this
need to
is,
have 5.
a vote of 5.
It was
So
always
the
the
majority
full,
of the full committee rather than a majority of those present at that.
Right.
but it says the full committee,
Yes, that's what it says.
yeah, so.
Okay, all right,
So,
yeah.
but the only change would be that we do not have the power to
To.
vote anybody off.
Yes, so
Right.
we
So,
got rid of that,
yeah,
yeah. So-
right.
Okay,
Okay.
so that, we're done with that for now.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was, I think we could vote on this with changes, or we could look at the changes for next week. and
Since
vote
we're
on
looking
them.
at all the other ones, you might as well. just
Yeah,
look at
let's
this
wait
one.
and do it next time.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the election of a vice chair.
And before we do anything, I just wanted to say something that I think ought to be a general principle. That, and I don't know that we need to write it into bylaws or anything, but I don't think that a person should be voted in as vice chair if they're going off, if there's the possibility that they're going off at the end of the year. So Lucy, me,
Mhm.
John.
Right.
It would be silly for us to make one of those people the,
Excuse me, possibly, yeah.
because they
Right.
might not be there.
Right.
It's a situation
Especially
we
if
don't
it's-
have any control over.
Especially if it's only 6 months, it's been a long time.
Yeah, and so
I
I
agree
just
with
think that ought to be a general
Okay.
principle.
That's 3 down, okay.
So I have someone I'd like to nominate on that model.
Okay, so, I've never been at a meeting where we've nominated or voted on anyone. Is it just, anyone can nominate anyone at this point in time?
Yeah.
And then we'll take a vote?
Yeah, for it.
Yeah, I would
All right.
nominate Larry. Larry's gonna punch me, yes.
I would,
Oh, Larry,
do we, and can we name other names, or
Sure,
should we
sure.
have to answer on each one?
No, I think you
Oh, yeah,
get them all
yeah,
out
get them all
there.
out there.
Yeah, sure.
And-
So,
And which Larry or both of them?
We can split it, yeah.
Mark's for Larry. Larry's
Like
for Larry.
twins.
John Chair.
Solomon.
And,
I would.
Sorry, really, seriously, I didn't know which Larry.
Very true.
Larry Chief.
I would
Thank you.
nominate Kingston, because he hasn't yet had a turn, and concept was that we would rotate.
Oh, you have not had
No, I
a
haven't.
Oh, I didn't know that. And you have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I was wrong, my lyrics.
I was actually gonna make that comment in the group.
I didn't know that.
The last week,
Yeah,
it's-
I've served
Yeah.
already.
Oh, then I take that back.
Yeah.
And
Well served.
I agree with Kingston.
We need to add to the onboarding process that you are going to be tested on who's already been chair.
Are there any other, if we had two people, like if you didn't withdraw and she is already
We'd have to.
nominated Kingston, how do we vote for
You
if there are
didn't have,
two
you
people?
pick one or the other and the one with the most votes wins.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, how would we do it?
One
Everyone-
of you would pick, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, everyone gets one vote from one person and the person who gets the most votes wins.
Okay,
That's how you do it, but we don't seem like we have that problem. Is anyone else besides Kingston on the floor?
To everyone here, everyone else has been the champion.
Except
Right.
Except
He
for
went
John
through.
and-
No, everyone
He
is here.
can't,
Yeah.
she can't, and she can't.
Jenny's probably not available after enough. Right,
That's
yeah.
true.
Anyway,
So,
She
so
misses three, doesn't she?
No longer, we
we,
didn't have the
we
power.
don't have the power to do that.
Oh. That's it.
Let me add something. We should leave it a little loose in the future that it doesn't the vice chair doesn't necessarily have to become chair, but it's more of a custom. Because as you're saying, what happens if Kingston has to leave for whatever reason? Then we're going, but as long as we.
Yeah. That's how it works.
It shouldn't be.
In the
Well,
city
that's
council.
in the bylaws, so we need to change the bylaws if it's just gonna be a
I
custom.
think don't we want a little flexibility there? I mean.
Does it say that they're gonna be the chair?
well, I came into this meeting thinking that this group really didn't have any real governance procedure for this, and I think maybe we should put that.
I think
Well, we
it's
just
in the
voted,
bylaws.
It's in that
for-
We're okay.
It says the vice chair shall succeed the chair in the term, so.
I promise to be nice to
May.
everybody.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
May
I'm using it as the example,
And,
not the.
and obviously if the vice chair is left for some reason.
Well, you can, when you're writing this,
Yeah.
why don't you just add the word generally succeed the chair?
Well,
Yeah,
It's already a may, which is
Yeah.
the message, not.
Yeah, you can
The vice
always,
chair shall.
if one of the
Is it
three.
shall?
you-
Yeah. Change it to
were
shall,
Right,
change it to may.
Change
May,
it
yeah,
to May.
right.
Until you get reappointed or decided not to
right,
Yeah.
apply again,
Right.
we would just have an action to vote for a chair and a vice chair in
Right.
January.
there we go.
You know, like in 2019, that was my last year on our council, but I was vice mayor.
Yeah, same thing in Rhode Island.
You know, so if I had run again, I could have had another term as mayor, but it just basically
Well, you
went
move
back
to
to
the
the
chair.
first.
Sometimes
Yeah.
people are denied though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the vice chair does have a responsibility in the absence of the chair, the vice chair.
That's
correct.
Mhm.
Right, so.
But at least a vice chair out of these three, if you want to consider them, would still be serving out the same 6 months that Kingston.
So from a practical perspective, because my term is up in December, it just seems logical that if Kingston has not served yet, that Kingston serve. It's just.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay with, you know.
Should we take
Can
it?
I be anointed now?
Exactly. Right, it's.
We need a secret
4 minutes
ceremony.
to 5.
Okay.
so-
We need a vote in
We
a
need a
second.
vote.
Yeah.
A motion and a second.
So I make a motion that we appoint Kingston as vice
And
chair.
I second it.
Okay.
Then we take a vote.
You need a roll call?
Roll call.
So this roll call, it's a motion to appoint Kingston as the new vice chair, correct?
Mhm.
That was a motion by,
John?
John, seconded by Lucy.
so motion by member McCauley, seconded by member Dilworth to elect member Kingston Cole as the current or appointing or anointing Kingston Cole
Hey.
chair.
Yeah, you have to be nice for 6 months.
Do
That's part
we
of the
need
deal.
do we need
I
to
want-
specify the term? His term is
No,
until
it's already-
December or no? It doesn't
it's
matter.
already in the bylaws.
Okay.
So first for the vote, Sir Kingston Cole.
Okay, so we go.
Aye.
He wins.
Enthusiastically, right.
Larry Minnicus,
Aye.
Larry Chu,
Aye.
John McCauley.
Aye.
Pat Randolph,
I,
Lucy Dilworth,
Aye.
Rebecca Suggs,
Aye.
Sheriff Howard,
Aye.
And just to let everybody know, I did not call member Biggs because she is not present this afternoon. And so that motion carries. Congratulations. member Biggs.
Congratulations, yes. One in the class.
Well, it's 5
Yeah,
o'clock.
yeah.
So the conversation of the word plan is gonna take some time. I would not
I
wanna
think we
rush
need to
through it.
put that on
So
the
I
next
would propose that
agenda.
we finish, what do you call it,
And
take off.
if there are quick committee reports, anything that we need to know about executive or board meetings.
I would say not from,
Yeah, I, you know, really not, Rachel is now vice president and Julie McMillan is now president. You know, they've hired, they hired they're in the process of hiring vegetation management specialists. Those of us who envisioned this in the beginning, I'm kind of like, they're hiring more people. This was supposed to be lean and mean, but I understand the need for it, so.
Is it correct that it's moved, it's currently it's 3 and then it's gonna be 1 in terms of the vegetation management efforts? Is that what's going on there? Or did I have that wrong? So it's 3, right? It's 4 now. It was 4 last year.
for staff.
No, 4 groups.
The jurisdiction.
Yeah.
No, there, as far as I know, there's still 5. I think what you may be thinking of, Mill Valley and Southern Marin fire departments are joining, and that's one thing they did vote on at the board meeting, that Mill Valley remains a member, even though that they have turned over the taxing authority to Southern Marin.
No, I was referring to the fact that, as I understood, and I may have it wrong, that instead of each of the 17 jurisdictions doing their own vegetation management, there's now sponsoring entities with and I believe there were 4 of them that were handling.
Yeah, and now they're going to be 3.
That was my point. So there's 4, it's gonna be 3. That's just that's where it stood. And I heard somewhere, I thought Mark said it might eventually be 1, but it is still 3.
Well, I think that we all had the vision to begin with that it should be 1. And they should be employed by.
That would be the most efficient.
Yeah.
By the MWPA, you can wear NW's sticker, right?
But someone wanted.
Anyway, it's 3, that's all I wanted to know.
Someone who will not be named wanted to do his own to begin with.
I'm
so.
going to
If you pick on Nevada once more,
Adjourn the meeting so that we can talk.
Can I adjourn it?
Hold on.
no, wait,
Wait,
we need to talk about next month, what we want to cover.
Then we just say we table this.
You're continuing
Future
that.
item.
Oh, we've already done that.
continuing the-
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Do we have to vote on that?
Did you
And-
have something else that you wanted on the agenda? I'm sorry, I did not ask for future
I
agenda.
have, yeah, I have 2 more, one I want to just say out loud. Jennifer, I think you did say out loud in our last meeting that we were going to have the opportunity to see the annual report before it goes out once more. I'm
Yeah.
assuming since not this meeting, maybe next meeting?
Hope so.
Hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we will get to see it and then have a chance to talk about it. That was number 1. And then number 2, do we need to do like a Hana key outcomes from the retreat? Or are we happy with it's in the minutes? It will be covered in the minutes when we do that next time?
I think it's fine.
I don't have an answer to that. I mean,
I
I
think it's fine.
I think the minutes are gonna be it.
Okay,
Yeah, and I would say that I believe that the retreat didn't solve all the issues. And that there are some issues that we still need to talk about. Number 1 of which, from my perspective, is a physical template for the report. Because if we don't have a writing committee, we can't all be doing our own thing.
All right, let's talk about that when we spend a good chunk of the meeting talking about the document that we already received.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for whatever, I didn't
Those
want
things
to,
do
I didn't want to
go, yeah.
delay the meeting, but the topic, the title of that was not right. Actually.
Yeah.
No,
It's
I-
not a report writing, it's
That's
actually
right.
just
No.
a direction.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to.
Yeah.
So you're gonna adjourn the meeting
Yes,
in deference to Mark and the reason for him not being here.
yes.
I would like to adjourn this meeting in memory of the 3 firefighters that lost their lives. And that's Division Chief Josh Bischoff, Captain Tim Rodriguez, and the pilot Tony Sousa.
Thank you,
Get that on the record.
thank you. Very nice, thank you.
Nice, Larry, thanks.
The meeting is
That's great.
adjourned.
And you can stop recording.
Right, that was really